Welcome to Disconnected. There's nothing new to this, but I always like the way Double Down News puts things. Um, so the headline is Iraq war crimes, Tony Blair should be in prison, not Julian Assange. That also goes for Bush, because essentially those two were supposedly in cahoots with this whole thing. I mean, I like these headlines here. Tony Blair deceived himself to justify Britain's invasion of Iraq. So, I don't think that's necessarily true. I wonder what. I personally think it's pretty clear that they waged war without having a proper international law reason. You could possibly argue it on some moral grounds. You could possibly say, well, maybe they were trying to save the Iraqi people. You can do all that, but actually, from a legal point of view, they didn't have it. Plus, the fact that they, of everything that's come out, it seems pretty plausible that they misled their governments with incorrect or maybe even fake information about weapons of mass destruction, or the possibility of Saddam Hussein to have those weapons, and on that basis they went to war. And I also truly agree with this Julian Assange thing. I mean, Julian Assange, let's put it this way, anybody, so the governments have a massive issue with whistleblowers, and that is a real issue. Whistleblowers are what essentially keeps us safe from our governments. Let's be clear. You cannot have, if you want to run a democratic country, there can be no such thing as a journalist not being allowed to, whistleblow. Doesn't matter what it is. We put our politicians in charge. We vote for them. We pay them. We need to know exactly why and how they make their decisions. And this idea that, there's certain things that the common person shouldn't know is bullshit. It is such a piece of bullshit that people who want to have power hide behind. Come on. In the interest of national security, come on. It's just an absolute piece of bullshit.
The UK invaded Iraq. Today, Tony Blair is free to go on television, has made a huge amount of money, the same with George Bush. At the same time, Julian Assange languishes in Belmarsh prison because he told the truth about this war.
Line them all up.
There is something deeply wrong with a society with those kind of priorities. When you look at the people who brought us the war in Iraq, the people who used everything at their disposal, the state machine, parliament, the media, when you look at what all those people did, nobody has faced any of the consequences. Even when the Chilcot report reported, Tony Blair set up his own press conference, paid for by the immense wealth which he now has, the many houses that he has. He was made envoy for peace in the Middle East. He was given a knighthood last year. Whereas all the people who told the truth about the war, the people who marched, what happened to them? The Muslim community penalised by the PREVENT system for telling the truth and for standing up for their rights. The people like Julian Assange in prison in Belmarsh for all these years for telling the truth. I remember Tony Blair the day of February the 15th when we had so many people marching in London. He said, even if 1 million people march in London, that's not as many as Saddam Hussein killed. Well, the war in Iraq ended up killing more people. He talked about human rights. This is about democracy. It's about getting rid of a dictatorship. After he stopped being Prime Minister, what did he spend his time doing? Advising dictators. The truth is, all of these were lies. All of them were things where they said, we are going to make things better, and actually they made it worse. And not just in Iraq. In the last 20 years, armament worldwide, amount of money spent on military has doubled. Nearly $2 trillion are now spent on arms every year, making the world a much more dangerous place. We've now got conflict not just between dictator in the Middle East and the biggest imperial power in the world, the United States. We've now got effectively a proxy war in Ukraine between two major imperial powers, and both of them with nuclear arms. We've got the much more real possibility.
Right, I want to come back to this piece here.
These were lies. All of them were things where they said and killed. Well, the war in Iraq ended up killing more people for telling the truth. I remember Tony Blair, the day of February the 15th, when we had so many people marching in London.
I remember that day. The idea that 1 million people were prepared to go down to London and march out of 70, 80 odd million people that live in the UK. Now, if you take that into context, 1 million people, 1 million people. Imagine how many people can't march, who out of the percentage of people, you know, if you have, let's say, I'm going to just take a round number, 80 million people in the UK. How many of them are kids? How many of them are old and frail? So that brings the amount of people that can actually march down. Then people who are possibly working or just not be able to make it down. So the percentage, the obvious mood of the nation to not go to war was so significant, and your own elected, democratically elected prime minister goes, yeah, I don't care, I'm going to do what I want. Then there is the fact that it was all based on lies, what it seems. And then, as she said afterwards, you know, then becoming, you know, this is all about freedom and democracy, and then afterwards, you know, becoming this advisor and speecher and, you know, dealing with other near dictatorships. It shows that there is absolutely no integrity behind our leaderships, except for populist politics, money, lots of money, deals, friends. It isn't about them trying to govern and making the best result for the country that they govern. It just never is.
It's about getting rid of a dictatorship. After he stopped being Prime Minister, what did he spend his time doing? Advising dictators. The truth is, all of the...
I mean, nothing much more needs to be said. Your thoughts below. Thank you very much.